Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The House of Commons inquiry into the collapse of retailer BHS is rumbling on. We're joined in the studio by the Conservative member of the Business Select Committee, Richard Fuller. Welcome. Now, the former owner of BHS, Phillip Green, he's been summoned to face questioning by Richard Fuller's committee on Wednesday. But the retail billionaire yesterday declared he was, quote, not prepared to participate unless the chair of the Work and Pensions Committee is also involved in this, Frank Field, resigned from the inquiry. In a letter he wrote, "I'm not prepared to participate in a process which has not even the pretense of fairness and objectivity, and which has as its primary objective the destruction of my reputation. I therefore require you to resign immediately from this inquiry." Frank Field responded,
My response is that the House of Commons appoints chairman and the select committees, because there's two of us, expect Sir Phillip to appear on Wednesday. Sir Phillip has got a lot of key questions to answer. He calls the shots. He's the person that can actually answer, and Parliament expects him to turn up on Wednesday.
Richard Fuller, no one expects Frank Field to resign.
No.
Is Phillip Green looking for a way of trying to avoid appearing?
Well, it's very hard to know what he's trying to do. I mean, he may call the shots at British home stores, but no matter how big you are, you don't call the shots at Parliament. So obviously he knows that, and he must be just trying to express his own concerns. He thinks it's because of the committee, but actually lots of the evidence against Sir Phillip Green has come from the people he sold the company to, people who are advisors to him on that transaction. Those are the questions we want to have him answer.
Because they're all ganging up on each other now at the moment, aren't they? I mean, they're all those who sold the company, those who bought the company. It's like rats in a sack at the moment, isn't it?
I mean, if I was an employee at British Home Stores and I'd watched those, I would be shocked at how little regard was paid by any of these people in their employment, in their stores. And if a pensioner, I'd be very concerned why money was taken out a long time ago, not only out of the profits, but out of the reserves. The important thing is Sir Phillip took the money out of the reserves. So yes, some years run forward, then there was a need to put some more money back in, and he was found wanting.
Can you force him to appear?
I think the force of public opinion will suggest that he should come. I don't know that Parliament needs to send the Sergeant at Arms to drag him, kicking and screaming.
Why should he be susceptible?
Because
he has a billionaire who splits his time between Monaco and Park Lane. When does he come face to face with public opinion?
Well, first of all, he has his own reputation. He's made certain assertions that he was trying to do the right thing. Well, come and show that to us. And secondly, I'd say that he relied on advisors, but ultimately he was a director of the company, and there are responsibilities as a director he needs to answer.
I understand these are all the reasons why you want him to appear, but shouldn't, if it's so important, and you talk about all the pensioners who'll be people who stopped work with BHS ages ago, they retired, they depend on their pensions, 11,000 BHS workers who I would suggest seem to have done nothing wrong at all except turn up every day, work hard for their store, they now lose their job as well. Shouldn't Parliament, if you were a US congressional committee, you'd have the power to subpoena Phillip Green.
And we've discussed it on my committee with Mike Ashley, the chief executive of Sports Direct, who for a long time argued whether he should or shouldn't come. In the end, he decided to come, so we didn't look at whether we need to take further action.
So, I mean, because my understanding his opinions is uncertain or even divided on this. It's not clear if a parliamentary select committee can force someone to give evidence.
That's exactly right. It is not clear whether we have the ultimate sanction of forcing someone to come under law. But there has always been an expectation that people, if they're asked by Parliament to come and account for their actions, that they would come. And if Sir Phillip Green wants to be the first person to stand against that, then so be it.
I mean, BHS was sold for £1. That in itself is a kind of, puts a big red neon sign above the whole transaction. It had a huge pension deficit. Here's the thing, it was sold to £1 to a man, Mr. Chappell, who was 3 times bankrupt. We don't know why the business department or the regulators even let this happened, why it wasn't caught in the process. If Parliament is to matter, surely it has to be able to force these people to come and speak to it.
Yeah, but I think the moral pressure that Parliament exerts on people to attend is still fairly impressive. It may not be the same as legal compulsion, but we did see Mike Ashley last week or the week before, a billionaire.
Rupert Murdoch kind of was forced to turn up by pressure as well, wasn't he?
Absolutely, only a couple of years
But what
ago.
happens if there's an empty seat on Wednesday?
Well, I suppose you can legally say no, but I would just say that Mike Ashley, and we're not suggesting Mike Ashley had legally done anything wrong. The criticisms were about the way he squeezed value out of his supply
His
chain.
company
and his
wasn't paying the
workers.
minimum wage. He's been doing something wrong.
If that's established, yeah. But,
Well, he missed it.
but even that moral pressure was enough to get him to turn up as a billionaire retailer in this country. So I
What's
think
your take?
Parliament as an invigilator is still pretty impressive.
My understanding is that it's a quasi-judicial event, and that the Sergeant-at-Arms can require him not to appear before the committee, but he can certainly be dragged in front of the Speaker of the House, and absolutely we should do that. I think it's been a terribly bad week for the last week for business. Puts business people in a very, very bad light when the vast majority of them do not act in this way. But the idea that you can have a knighthood and you can be a billionaire on your yacht and you can do, two fingers up to the representatives of the British people and still keep your knighthood, I don't think so.
What's your take on this?
Well, as we say, thousands of jobs at this company that they did sell for £1. The allegations that have been made by the gentleman to whom the business was sold are eye-watering. Phillip Green, I'm sure the public would like to see him dragged, kicking and screaming. He can decide not to come, but if he does, then that really tells everyone one thing about all the questions that we are waiting for answers to, and it's not the message that he wants to put across. Actually, he should see next week as his chance to go and put the record straight if there is, a story that he wants to tell. Otherwise, people will draw their own conclusions.
And he can bring Kate Moss on his arm as usual, and everyone will love it.
Is she the financial advisor?
Apparently so. It would seem so, yes.
I want to move on, but before we do, if he doesn't turn up, would that alone be grounds for being stripped of the knighthood?
I've always said that we have to wait for him to come and answer some of the questions. And what we've seen in the last few weeks is very serious concerns about his behaviour, the behaviour of his directors. If he doesn't come, I think at that stage, then within the rules of how you can be stripped of an honour, I think the committees would very seriously look at that, yes.
OK. Now, Jeremy Corbyn's advisers are sceptical of what they call the mainstream media, the MSM. You see it being attacked all the time on Twitter. Perhaps that's why on Friday night the Labour leader appeared to explain his view on Europe, not on a political analysis programme, for example, like this one, but on the Channel 4 comedy gig, The Last Leg. And if you thought the great Jazzer was all allotments and bicycles and veggie food, think again. He does Bentleys and bling.
Showtime.
Let's go. Why?
Well, to show that he's up for a laugh,
And he was.
And if people watch it, they probably will think that. There is a bit of a risk, because other people might just open their newspapers and see the pictures and think, actually, that's what Jeremy wears on a weekend.
So it was all right to do that, yeah?
I think
one's
it
going
came
to
across
think
pretty
that's
well.
what Jeremy Corbyn wears.
You
in
never
the
know.
weekend.
You never know. Out and around the country, people might think that, it's old jumpers during the week. Fake fur.
And fake fur
Head
on
to
the
foot
weekend.
on the weekend.
Well, I would find that a stretch, but you may be right.
Well, the stretch limo, yes. The whole point of the last leg, they said, they want to show that he's got a sense of humour. He came across very well. It's very funny, and it was very witty. Unless you want to be Prime Minister. I'm not sure that's what future Prime Ministers
You're saying
do.
that people who want to be Prime Minister can't be this type of people who want to have a laugh, be a bit of a buffoon?
I think
Anyone
there is-
else you're thinking of?
Well, I would agree on that front as well. But I mean, I do think people quite like to have people who might be Prime Minister, people they can take seriously.
Is that the purpose? Was it an attempt to try and put a little more humanity on him, try and humanise him a little bit by his own advisers? Because they must have thought long and hard about doing this.
Well, I'm not convinced they think long and hard about anything, given his performance over the past 8 or 9 months. Your initial question was why, and I think the answer is, I don't think he wants to be Prime Minister. Certainly don't think he thinks he will ever be Prime Minister, and therefore the cost after doing this kind of gesture is really minimal for him. He's not missing out on votes that he particularly wants anyway. He did say one thing during the performance, apparently, which the press has interpreted as embarrassing for Remain, where he says, I'm a 70% Remainer or something like that.
He said 7 to 7.5.
Yes.
So 70 to 75%.
He's even
More
more
than I
precise,
thought he was, to be fair.
which I think actually in many ways perversely might resonate with more marginal voters than we think. People who don't much like the European Union but will grudgingly consider voting to stay in. So I wonder whether through accident Jeremy Corbyn has arrived at a line which is more persuasive than the more vociferous one that David Cameron has.
Well, the next 10 days will tell us that. I thought he performed it quite well when he coming out there and he opens it, and it's kind of relief that he can open his top button and showtime. That showed he could have a future as an acting career doing that. We have the Tooting by-election. Don't mention the names of any of the candidates, or I'll have to go through the lot, refer him to the website. It's kind of been overshadowed entirely by the referendum. It's the seat vacated by Sadiq Khan in central London, or almost central London. Is it significant? It's a quite tight seat, I understand.
Well, it certainly was reasonably tight at the last election, and before Sadiq actually won the mayoralty, some people were saying it could be lost for Labour, although I'd be surprised in the wake of the mayoral election, which appeared to give a big boost to Labour.
Well, the marginal money is on Labour to keep the seat, but obviously there was a big personal Sadiq vote going on there. If the Tories win it, it will be seen as very significant. If Labour win it, it will be seen as very significant. Actually, by-elections, by and large, aren't very significant.
Well, you say that, but some of us have to be up all night to cover them. I can assure you,
Except when you're talking about them,
hugely
Andrew.
Significant. It would be significant for the Tories to win it, I think, a long shot, while they're knocking lumps out of each other. Doesn't usually happen.
Well, the most telling thing about the polls, if you look away from the referendum question, is that even in their current state, they are 3, 4, 5 percentage points ahead of Labour. Tooting is a seat that's trending Tory long-term because more and more prosperous people are moving in.
There's a demographic change in the constituency.
And the voter registration would have changed things as well.
Yes, I mean, this vote might come a bit too early to take advantage of that. But you can imagine it's one of those seats which next time, if Corbyn is still leader in 2020, turns blue.
All right, we'll leave it there. Richard Phillip, thank you for being with us. We will look with interest to see who's with you on Wednesday.
Indeed. Maybe in a fur coat.
We've got the popcorn in. Yes, maybe he'll be available. If not, if you'd like to know, contrary to Julia Hartley-Brewer there, if you'd like to know the result, tune in on BBC One on Thursday night. Off the back of this week, we will be bringing you the live coverage of the result from the Tooting by-election.
I've been